Hello and welcome to episode 1 of A Big Knit Knitting Podcast. Yeah. Hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Chloe. I have wanted to try podcasting about knitting for a while. I thought that the middle of summer seems like the perfect time to try. So this will be a podcast or a vlog all about my recently finished and current and upcoming knitting projects. I am located in Prince George, Canada, which is in the westmost province of BC. And I've been knitting for about 18 months. I started knitting, back a couple years ago. I made my partner a toque for Christmas and I loved it and he loved it, and so I just never looked back. I've wanted to try podcasting because I love watching knitting podcasts and I get so much inspiration for like new patterns and new yarns and like creative ideas from the podcasts that I watch, and I would love to try to contribute to that community, and I'm really excited. So here we go. Today I have 3 finished objects and 4 whips and 1 project fail. So here we go. My first finished object is this. So this is a Tolsta tee by Clow from the Crayabea. So this is in the DK weight option. If you're not familiar with this pattern, it has a DK weight option and a 4-ply option, as well as this is new. She released this pattern last year, but this past June she's also added bust shaping for a few different bust sizes. Cup sizes? Anyway, she added some bust shaping. I think that's really cool. I do have a few of her patterns on my needles right now. My upcoming knitting plans don't have as much of her stuff, but right now I'm working on one thing for me, 1 test knit, which I guess is also for me, and then a gift. But I like her patterns. They're very clearly written. They're very size inclusive, and I appreciate that she puts as much into them as she can, if that makes sense. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I do like them. So, what to say about this pattern? I knit the size 6. One modification that I did make was I cast on for the neckline in the size 4. Did the ribbing in the size 4, and then on my first knit row I increased for the size 6. And that is because I have knit one of these previously, and I think this was more of a yarn issue because it stretched out so much that it almost has become like an off-the-shoulder tee on it. It's just a bit too much. I want to be able to wear this for work, and I just don't think it looks that nice when a neckline is so wide that it's falling off of your shoulder. Some people like it, I don't. This is my personal preference. I also knit this in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, which I have heard grows a lot, and I have never worked with it before. So I didn't want to make a t-shirt and then have that same thing happen where it just stretches out and then I don't want to wear it. But this has worked out perfectly. It is exactly what I wanted. It's not too tight on the neckline. Like you can probably see, like it covers my bra straps, but it still shows like a little bit of my neck and like shoulder skin. So it kind of like, it still feels summery, I suppose is what I'm saying. It's not like a sweater where it's like really tight on my neck. So I do really like it. I wear it a lot. Like I said, I haven't worked with the pure silk before, but it has been really hot here, and this has been the perfect shirt to wear, especially when I'm working, because it's professional, but I'm not overheating. And the pure silk feels really nice on my skin. So what else? What else can I say? It is knit on a 5mm needle for the body, and it is a 17 stitch gauge. So it knits up so fast. This one was on my needles for like a month and a half, but that's because I knit 80% of it in about 2 days. And then I put it down, and then I didn't touch it for almost a month and a half, and then I finished the remaining part in like another 2 or 3 days. So I would say it's like a very gratifying project, because you just start it, and then you blink, and then it's done. So like I said, I use Knitting for Olive. The colors are Wheat, which is the cream, and Deep Petroleum Blue. My stitch pattern or repeat was 8 rows of the Wheat, 2 rows of the Deep Petroleum Blue, and I think it's really nice. I kind of emulated one of the patterns that she did as one of her like initial patterns when she released this. I thought it was really nice, and I wanted one, so here we are. I don't think that there is anything else I wanted to say. Oh, I held the Pure Silk double, if I didn't mention that. So it ends up being like a really nice fabric. I'm just gonna blow my nose. Gross. Okay. My next finished object is not at all seasonally appropriate. So these are my Songbird mittens by Erica Heusser. I knit these up in a couple of weeks. I finished them 2 weekends ago, I think. And I saw them at a local knitting store when I was visiting my parents down in Victoria, I think last June, so about a year ago. I thought they were beautiful. I immediately bought the pattern, and then I didn't make them. I've always struggled with making pairs of things, so I can get through the first one no problem, and then the second one feels like it's painful and like pulling teeth. But that seems to be changing, and so that is what I wanted to do. And what to say about this? I knit this on Brook Farm Fingering from Gathering Yarn. It's 100% British wool. It's a light fingering, so the skeins are like little balls. They're 25 grams, and they are 105 meters, I believe. So 420 meters per 100 grams. So a bit of a lighter fingering, a little bit rustic, but I think it ended up being like really nice for the color work. You can see, like, especially like my color work tension on the palm is like flawless. My color work tension on the bird is not. I'm pretty new to color work. It's a skill that I really want to improve on. I have a couple color work sweaters that I'd really like to make, but I don't want to commit to a sweater until I can improve my color work tension, and so I'm just starting with smaller projects. And to help me with my tension, although it didn't help quite as much as I was hoping, I knit them inside out. I won't pull them all the way inside out, but so like my color work tension on the inside looks pretty good, but I think like the floats on the bird side are much longer, and so I think that was the problem. These mittens are knit on a 2.5 millimeter needle, and it's a one size fits all kind of pattern. One thing that I would mention about that is they're quite narrow. So I would think, I kind of associate my hand size with being average. Like they're not too big, they're not too small. When I put this on, it is snug, especially right here. Like there is no, like of course there's more as we go down, but right here on the widest part of my hand, there's almost no extra fabric. It doesn't bother me, it's not uncomfortable, but I would say that if you were planning on making them and you're not sure, like if you think that you're making them for someone who has big hands, maybe try going up a needle size and just being a bit under gauge. Yeah, I think that would, like, if I make them again, I would maybe make them a little bit bigger on a bigger needle size, so potentially like a 2.75 mil needle, or just use a slightly thicker yarn. Like this was quite light. If you used a thicker yarn, it would probably make it a bit bigger also. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say on these. I'm really excited to wear them this winter. Prince George gets really cold, up to probably, like, we get a few weeks of minus 40 degrees Celsius, and I work from home. I don't leave the house all that often, but I think that these will be perfect, and I'm really excited. Oh my goodness, I have to blow my nose again. I'm trying to like resist sniffling, but I think there's something in the air today, so excuse me. Little pile of Kleenex. My last finished object, I would say, is on the borderline of when I finished it for what I would include, but I think it's really pretty and I wanted to talk about it. And it's my podcast, so I can do what I want. So this is the Nola cardigan. It's by Yamagara Knits. And this is a top-down raglan construction. The button band is seamless to the body, and it's knit on the same needle millimeter size. The sleeves are worked flat and then seamed together at the end, and that is because it has this color work motif, maybe is the term. It has these color work panels down the side of the sleeve, of these 3 magnolia flowers, but then there's no other color work on the rest of the sleeve. So in order to prevent you from having to like catch your floats all the way around, you just knit it flat. The technique that the pattern designer, is it by Yamagara Knits? I think I said that. So the pattern writer suggests using an intarsia technique to do the sleeves. I didn't want to weave in that many ends. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like weaving in ends. So what I ended up doing was I caught my floats across, and then I left my gray string kind of active, and then on my way back I just picked up again. I will say that when I was picking back up, I would do like a little intarsia style twist just to make sure that I wasn't going to get any gaping between the gray and the orange. But it seemed like there's a couple spots where I could have done a better job, but this was my first ever like proper color work. Like you can see like right here, it's a little bit gapey. Oh, I think it focused. I hope. But like you don't notice it when you're wearing it. I love this cardigan. I finished it at the start of June, so like a month and a half ago almost, but I love it. I wear it a lot. Last month was a bit chilly, so I did get a lot of wear out of it. This pattern has a wide sleeve option and a tapered sleeve option. So I went for the wide sleeve option. And then, so you can see like under the arms there, it does get wider. So you do increases rather than decreases. And I think like the result is really nice. It kind of makes this like balloon style sleeve where it kind of just like slopes out, and I really like it. And then the wide sleeve option also has a split cuff. And yeah, I love it. I love it a lot. It's really warm. I made this, so the orange is the color Highland Cow from Kinross 4-ply, and the gray, the gray is Issir Tweed in the colorway Winter Gray, and both are held double. So Kinross 4-ply, I believe, is 100% lamb's wool, and then Isier, I think, is regular wool, but held double, it's toasty. So it'll be perfect for fall. I can't wait. I think that was it I wanted to say on this. It's a 16 stitch gauge, so it just flew. Oh, also, some people are like me and they don't really like doing like double knit button bands. This is not a double knit button band. So you do it as you work the body, you do the increases on the body side of the button band, but it's just essentially like an I-cord along the edge and then some rib stitches. I think it's a really nice like effect. It kind of adds a bit of interest, but you don't have to have the pain of doing a double knit button band. The only modification I made for mine is I actually chose to omit the buttons and the buttonholes. I wear a lot of my cardigans just open, and I took this on a work trip and I didn't really want to be farting around with buttonholes and trying to like measure out where the buttons were gonna be, and so I just didn't do them. I do think eventually I'm gonna add like a little I-cord right there in the middle just so that I could tie it closed if I wanted to, but I'm still on the fence a little bit. Oh my goodness. Excuse me and my runny nose. I must have allergies to something. Okay, so those are my 3 finished objects. We will move on to whips. My first whip is the Tolsta tank. So this is also by Rebecca Clow. It is the like companion pattern to the Tolsta T. The Tolsta T came out last year. The Tolsta tank came out this year. And so the Tolsta T, true to Rebecca's pattern designing nature, has an insane amount of options. So there's the DK weight option, there's the fingering weight option, and then both in the DK weight and in the fingering weight, there is a cami neckline, a vest neckline, and I think she called the other one like a square neckline. This is the cami neckline. So the cami is essentially like 4 triangles that come up from the body. So you knit it bottom up. And the problem with bottom up, notoriously, I'm sure anyone who sees this will know, they are hard to show and make it look good. So it probably won't. But this is my body. I am knitting the size 6, and the fingering weight option is a 24 stitch gauge. So it's not like really like a true fingering gauge, but it's knitting out pretty quickly. I'll talk about it first and then I'll talk about the yarn. So you can see I did a ruffle at the bottom. I was really inspired by one of the test knitters who did essentially like a ruffle cami, a ruffle bottom cami, and I thought it was so cute and I desperately wanted one. And I had this yarn that I was saving for the Tolsta T to do a fingering weight version. So I was like, perfect, I'll do that. It did. And when I learned this, I should have abandoned the project because I wouldn't have even started. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry. I must be allergic to something. Where was I? Oh yes. So one of the testers did a ruffle on the bottom of her DK weight cami. I was like, oh, I'll do a ruffle on the bottom of my 4-ply weight cami. To do the ruffle, you have to cast on 3 times as many stitches, and then you do the ruffle. So for me, I did about 5 centimeters. It doesn't look like quite that long, but it is 5 centimeters. And then when you're done doing the ruffle, you do a center double decrease all the way around to decrease the stitches to the original amount, which is 1/3 of what you started with. For the size 6 in the 4-ply pattern, I had to cast on over 900 stitches. Don't do it. Don't be me. The tester was smart. I was not. It's not worth it. This could end up being the most beautiful t-shirt in the entire world, and it won't have been worth it. So if you were inspired to do a ruffle Tolsta T, or sorry, not Tolsta T, Tolsta tank, do the DK weight option. Okay, do it. Do the DK weight option. So yeah, that is my harrowing journey of this bottom. That being said, I really like it. This yarn is really drapey, and so I think it'll have like a interesting effect when it's done. I am currently working on the first of the back triangles. So that I said there's 4 triangles, there's 2 on the back, and there'll be 2 on the front. I have altered the ones on the back, and partially that is because I don't want the back triangles to be identical to the front triangles, which I think is what the pattern calls for. I want to be able to see more clearly which is the front and which is the back. And part of that, like if you're not doing any bust shaping, it doesn't really matter. I did some bust shaping, and so I don't want to actually accidentally wear my tank top backwards, which is something that I would do. So I have slightly changed it. What I've done is I've increased the decrease rate. So she's got a decrease rate laid out in the pattern. I have opted to just do 2 decreases every row on the wrong side and the right side. And I have decreased to the correct number of stitches. And I did count in the pattern how many decreases happen on the armhole side of the triangle and how many decreases happen on the center back side of the triangle. And so they're not the same. And so I did decrease on each side the appropriate amount, which just means that when my strap meets the front strap, it will be in the correct spot. And the only other change I've made is that once I reached my correct amount of stitches, I just started doing double knitting. So I cast on, like I would knit one and then cast on, and then knit one and cast on. And I'm doing the strap in double knitting, partly because this, like I said, this yarn is really drapey. I think it's gonna grow. And I have all this extra weight of the ruffle at the bottom. And so I just want my straps to have a bit more stability. I believe that's mostly what I wanted to say about this. The yarn is, I got it off Facebook Marketplace while I was down in Victoria. Oh, excuse me. And it is Mayu Lace by Amano, held double. So it's a lace weight yarn held double. It is, I don't have the tag with me. It is 60% alpaca, 20% cashmere, and 20% mulberry silk, I believe. So it's really soft. It's really drapey. I think it will grow, but I'm hoping that the silk in it will maybe keep it stable. But we'll have to see. I've never used it before. I don't think I've ever seen it at my local knitting store. But I also almost never, this is my only lace weight yarn that I have. And I've been keeping it for this pattern. Let me see. Okay. So that is also a pattern by Rebecca Clow. My next one is also a pattern by Rebecca Clow. Right now it's on cables because I wanted to do a little block last night. So this is the beginnings, the meager beginnings of a Kip sweater. It's her new pattern that it's in testing right now. It is supposed to be released in the fall, and it's this herringbone design. So yeah, I'm sure you saw when I held it up. It's got herringbone design, kind of making these stripes. I have wanted to test this ever since I saw it. Like months and months and months ago. So I actually purchased the yarn before she even did the test call, which was kind of funny. And then I just hoped for the best, and thankfully I was chosen to do it. The reason why I did a block of my project so early is because this yarn grows quite a lot. And I blocked my swatch, and I was perfect gauge, right on gauge, 22 stitches per 10 centimeters. And I was like, okay, awesome. And then I was looking at what I have yesterday. I was like, that looks a little bit small. So this is the back panel. So this here is the neck, and it sits across the shoulders like this. And it's a bit of a drop shoulder. I think she kind of refers to this term, like, to this style. She's used this construction a few times. She refers to it as like a little baby drop shoulder. So it's not down here like your traditional drop shoulder. It's more up here. And then the additional stuff here to bring it more level is created with short rows in the sleeves. It is, I would say it is my preferred drop shoulder construction. I don't like having lots of fabric here. I'm already pretty busty. I don't need tens of centimeters of positive ease sitting around my bra strap armpit area. I don't really like it very much. This I do like, but I was looking at it and I was like, it looks too small. And so what I did was I measured my total length, and then I went, and she has the stitch counts in her pattern, and I did the calculations for how big it's supposed to be, and I was 10 centimeters short. And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, well, before I rip it out, I'll block it, and I'll see if it grows. And it did. It is not fully where it should be. It's still about 3 centimeters too short, or 3 centimeters from being the proper width. But when I blocked it, I just soaked it, squished it out, and like laid it out flat. So there was no pinning of anything. I did not pull anything. And so I think that when at the end, when I do it and I do pin it out, it will be fine. So I'm not going to restart. I feel confident that this yarn is good. It'll be fine. I have made one mistake, and I made it almost immediately. So you cast on here, and then you start doing the stitch pattern, and you increase out, and this makes, these bits here are the shoulders. I started my herringbone pattern going the wrong direction. I was looking at the pictures from the other testers, and I was like, ooh, mine's different. Yeah, because I made a mistake. That being said, like, this stitch pattern is a bit slow. The row gauge is 44 rows per 10 centimeters. And given that there is a deadline for this, I don't really want to restart, especially because it's not like integral to the sweater. It just means on my next step, when I'm picking up stitches along the shoulder to start doing the front, I just need to make sure that I start on the correct stripe direction. So let me see. I don't think there's too much about the pattern. If you've made any of her patterns before, she has a bunch that are in this construction. So it's the same construction as the Lauder. It's the same construction as the Stick Season. She has a new pattern in testing, I think, called the Lunin, and it's also the same. So she really likes this construction. I really like this construction. I will continue to make all the sweaters that she produces in the construction. The yarn is Durum Natura Elise. I picked the colorway Foray, French for forest. When I picture forest green, this is what I'm picturing. It's deep, it's not too bright, it's slightly heathered with like little bits of yellow and brown, and I think it is beautiful. I cannot wait to wear this, and I think at the end I would definitely use this yarn again. Yeah, I haven't used it before, so I don't know how it'll hold up. It is a sport weight, so it's 185 meters per 50 grams. So I'm getting pretty good. I'm getting a lot out of it, I think. So that's the Kip sweater. My next work in progress looks a bit messy at the moment, and that's because I have 2 active balls of yarn attached to it. So this is a gift. Ever since I started knitting, my partner has asked for a sweater, and I kind of joke that there's a sweater curse, and if I make him a sweater before we get married, we're gonna break up. And I don't actually believe that. But he made a good point that we have been legally living together long enough now that we're common law in Canada. So technically, the Canadian government views us as married. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll make you one. So this is what he picked. Well, I gave him a few options, and the Stick Season Sweater by Rebecca Clow was one of the options. The original sweater pattern has a textured yoke made with just knits and pearls to make like sticks. That's what she calls them. This is a stickless Stick Season Sweater because he wanted something a bit more plain. So I am making him the size 4. It is knit on 4mm needles, and I'm hitting gauge pretty much bang on. I think this yarn will grow a little bit, but not too much because there is viscose in it. So I'm hoping that that will kind of create a little bit more positive ease, but that it won't grow to be huge. And I have 2 active balls of yarn because if you can see on the bottom, it looks not very good. And that is because I put it on try-on cables so that he could try it on and I could get a sense for where I was on the body. Because I've never made a sweater for a male body before. I've only really knit for myself. And sometimes you do decreases along the body to kind of taper it in, because generally male bodies don't have wide hips like female bodies tend to have. Well, I don't want to phrase it like that. This is a sweater that has been graded to a women's size chart, which accommodates for wider hips. If a sweater was graded to a male size chart, it wouldn't accommodate for wider hips. And so I'm just trying to avoid making a long sweater where it's just really gapey down at the bottom. And I've never done that before. So I'm not sure if I need to do any decreases. I've done one set of decreases, and I'm kind of at the point where I would do a second set of decreases. But before I do that, because especially with a drop shoulder, what you really need to try it on and get an accurate feel of the fit is you need a neckline, and you need at least half a sleeve on both sides. And that's because, especially with this pattern, it has this rib detail along the side, like along the armhole and along the upper back shoulder. And so it kind of just like cinches everything in a little. And so without the weight of a sleeve, it's not clear how it's fitting. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I think I'm about halfway through the neckline. This sweater is designed to have like a nice chunky ribbing, which is what I'm gonna do. So I'm about halfway done. I need to do another, I think I'm probably about 4 centimeters. So I need to do another 4 centimeters and then I'll fold and sew it down. This yarn, my boyfriend picked it especially for him. It's not one that I had in stash already. He did look through my stash yarn and he liked some of the colors, but his skin is on the sensitive side versus mine is not. So I will wear the most rustic of yarns. I draw the line at Plotolopi. That's too rustic for me, but pretty much anything up until then is fair game. So I have a lot of like semi-rustic, rustic yarns in my stash, and he was rubbing it. He's like, oh, I don't think I can wear that. So we picked out some yarn, especially for him. I've never used it before, but it's from a fairly well-known brand. It's Cama Rose is the brand, Lama Tweed is the yarn. It is so soft. Like there's not a single prickle. There's not a single prickle. So I would highly recommend this for someone who has sensitive skin. It is 40% Lama, 40% virgin wool, and 40% viscose. I'm not sure if the viscose is in the tweed, like the tweedy bits, or if it's also built into the yarn. Because I've never used this before. I do have a bit of concern with how soft it is, and I'm worried that it's gonna pill like crazy. So I'm hoping that if the viscose is also in the yarn strand, it might help prevent that. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I also think, like, this is gonna be warm. It's gonna be a warm sweater. It's quite a dense fabric. This is like a true worsted, so it's 100 meters per 50 grams. So true worsted weight. The pattern is more designed for a DK weight yarn, I think. So it's a bit dense, but not in a way that makes it stiff. I'm hoping you know what I mean. That being said, my boyfriend runs a bit on the warm side, so unless it's freezing out, I'm not necessarily sure how much wear he's gonna get out of it. Like, I can wear my sweaters, my wool sweaters, just around the house. I don't think he'll be able to do that. I think he'll have to wear it outside, kind of like instead of a jacket. So it's possible that even if this yarn does pill like crazy, I won't have to depill that often because he won't be able to wear it. But I know that even if that's the case, he'll still treasure it. So that's what's important. I don't believe that there's anything else that I wanted to say. Oh, in terms of the pattern, it's a 20 stitch gauge and I'm knitting it on a 4mm needle. What am I doing? And I'm doing my ribbing on a 3.5mm needle. I have a tendency to have quite a loose ribbing. So sometimes I'll even go down to like a full millimeter below the body. I didn't do that with this one. It seems to be going okay. I might do it along the bottom, but along the neckline, like I'm consciously trying to keep my tension a little bit tighter. Okay, my last whip before we talk about my fail is a sock. I have never successfully made a sock. I want to make a sock. I want to be a sock knitter. I think that knitted socks are so cute. I think it's a practical project to be able to carry around in your purse. I think in theory there's not that much knitting involved, so they are generally quick. And I would say I don't necessarily subscribe so much to the seasonal color palette stuff, you know, like winter, summer, spring, autumn. But I would say that like the autumn colors look the best on me. So like the spicy oranges and the forest greens, stuff like that. I think working on socks is then a nice way to be able to include a bunch of colors in your knitting that you don't necessarily think would complement your skin tone, but you still want to work with because they're fun. So that's my sales pitch for socks. I've had this everyday sock pattern in my pattern library for over a year. Oh no, maybe not quite that long. No, over a year. I think I tried knitting them March of last year, and I got through almost a whole sock. I tried it on. It was really tight. I think I picked a size that was too small for me, which I'll get into shortly. And it's possible that my gauge wasn't right. I was still pretty new into knitting, and I don't think I ever really gauged swatch back then. So I'm hot off the success of my first or my second ever pair project. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling inspired, so I decided to try a pair of socks. So, Everyday Sock by Petit Knit. I'm doing a little shorty version. So I did the 10 rounds of knitting that she says in her pattern, and then I did 10 rounds of stockinette, and then I started the heel. The socks that I buy from the store are shorties. I don't love having sock fabric bunched around my ankles. It gives me the sensory ick. If you can relate to that, I don't like it. So little shorty sock. And I'm knitting the size 4. So that is the size that it's intended, I believe, for 9.5 to 10.5 women's size feet. I am more of a 9, but what I realized is that the foot size that you're knitting for, it more matters for the width of your foot, because the length of the sock is up to you. So I'm almost ready to, I think I need probably 3 more centimeters, and then I can start decreasing for the toe. But I have a bit of a wider foot, and I know this, and so I think that's where I went wrong last time. Is I think last time I tried knitting for a size 3, because that includes the size 9 women's, but it just ended up being too narrow. So I've tried it on. So far it's fitting really well. It is a superwash yarn, so I think it'll give a little when I block it. And if it ends up being too big, then that is a lesson learned, and the next one that I make will be the size smaller. What else? So this is knitted on 2.5 millimeter needles. The gauge is 30 stitches per 10 centimeters. I am bang on, so yay. The yarn I'm using, I've had it in stash for a really long time because this is what I tried knitting my sock with originally last year. And so it doesn't look very nice. It's all wound up, but the color is really pretty. I don't have the tag anymore, but I do know what it is. The brand is Lichen and Lace, which is a indie yarn dyer from Canada along the East Coast. I believe they're from New Brunswick. I'm pretty sure. You can find their things on Etsy. My local yarn shop carries them some of the times. That's where I got this one. This is their sock base, so it's 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon, and the color is, I believe it's wildflowers. It could be pressed wildflowers, but I think it's wildflowers. And I really like how it's knitting up. The main color is this like slightly stripy neutral that leans a bit on the peachy side, and then it has these flecks of color, and I think it's adorable. And I don't know if you can get this yarn base anymore, because I think they have since switched to an eco superwash, but it probably still looks the same, I think. So that is my everyday sock. I should have done this in a different order because it kind of leads into my acquisitions, but that's okay. I'll do my project fail after I blow my nose, and then we will do acquisitions. Sorry I'm so sniffly, folks. I don't know why. I don't normally have allergies. We do have 3 cats, and sometimes I think I'm allergic to them, but then other times I don't feel allergic to them, so there's no way to know. Okay, my last project is my fail. So I succumbed to the wave sweater hype. The wave sweater is a pattern written by me, Firring. You may have seen them on Instagram if you're on Instagram. It seemed like for a while, especially earlier this year, everyone was knitting a wave sweater. And I had looked at it, and I thought about it, and I was on the fence, but then I found some yarn that I was like, oh, this will be so pretty. And one of the things that I wanted to try this year was working with a boucle yarn. So this is what I've ended up with. The boucle is from Full Moon Fibers, and it's the color Time Spent Together, I think, or Time Well Spent. I got it on sale at the end of last year on their website. They posted it on their Instagram, and I was like, that is the most gorgeous color I've ever seen. I have to have it. So I'm really hoping that's focusing. It should be. And I knew at that point I was looking at the wave sweater, and I thought that this would be really cool for the wave, which it is. I have no regrets on that part. What I regret is my choice of yarn for the white. So what I chose was this local to me yarn. I can't actually find it anywhere online. I got it at my local yarn store. It is from R&A Farms, and the tag is like handwritten. It says Farmington, BC, which I believe is about 4 hours or so north, close to Dawson Creek. I've never used them before. I've never seen them before. I think the fact that it's so local to me is really cool. I think in Canada, it's not as easy to find like really local yarns because we're not like the UK. We're not known for our yarn. There's a few well-known Canadian mills, like Briggs and Little is a common one. I've never worked with them either. Anyway, I digress. This yarn is squishy, and it's sheepy, and it's really rustic. And originally my plan for this sweater was that I was going to make something large and oversized in a rustic yarn as the main, because then it could be almost like a outer layer in the winter instead of a jacket. I regret that decision. It's not about this yarn. This yarn is really nice. It doesn't necessarily knit up the most tidy. If you can see there along my short rows and my ribbing, it looks kind of sloppy. It's a bit of a thick and thin yarn situation, but my swatch blocked out really nice, so I have no doubt that when I use this yarn, it'll block out really nice. I just don't think I really put enough thought into if it was the right yarn for this project. So that is issue number 1. Issue number 2, I actually have an issue with the pattern. I will say that I tend to try to make sure that the patterns that I'm buying are as size inclusive as possible, because I want to support designers who grade their patterns to a wide range of sizes. I don't know if half those words that came out were correct. I want to support designers who grade their patterns to as wide a range as possible. There we go. Partially of that is because I have a large bust. I think I maybe mentioned it. My bust circumference is 125 centimeters, which is on the bustier side. So if I was buying clothing, I would probably be anywhere between a 14 and an 18. Just depend, or maybe even a 12, but it really depends on what I'm buying and where I'm buying it from. And I find that my bust measurement doesn't necessarily match my waist measurement. So that is another thing that I sometimes struggle with. That being said, if a garment is graded to more sizes over a wider range of bust measurements, it is going to increase the quality of the fit of the final garment. This was only graded to 4 sizes. So it's an extra small, a small medium, a large extra large, and an extra extra large. I looked at the measurements, and the measurements for the large extra large, I believe, were maybe around 140 centimeters for the finished yoke circumference. So I'm like, okay, I think that's what it's about. Excuse me. So I was like, okay, that's gonna give me 15 centimeters of positive ease. That seems like plenty. What I didn't really realize was, so the other thing about the grading on this pattern is the smallest size so it's graded for between a 105 centimeter for the smallest size and 155 centimeter for the largest size. That is a huge size range across 4 sizes. What that means is that the sweater has to accommodate for a deeper yoke for bigger busts, even on the sizes that are smaller, if that makes sense. So the issue that I'm trying to get at, the issue that I have with this sweater and its fit, is when I hold it up, my yoke is exactly where I want it to be. I don't like it when my yoke is too deep, because then it rides up when I raise my hands, it pills, it makes my upper body look weirdly proportioned. But it only ends, like it fits the way I want it to because I ended my yoke probably 8 centimeters early. So I still had quite a few rows to go before I was supposed to split from my yoke, which means that I split from my yoke early because I wanted the yoke to fit properly in terms of depth. I wanted my yoke depth to fit the way I wanted it to. That means that the body of my sweater has way less stitches than it's supposed to, which means that it's more of a snug fitting sweater than a loose, oversized fitting sweater, which is not what I wanted. The other thing is that even if I had continued going for the full recommended yoke size, that would just mean that the body of my sweater under the yoke would have been oversized, but I find the top quite snug. So it's like it's snug along my chest and my shoulders and then the yoke. And then so had I even continued increasing, it still would have been snug because this was unchanged. And ultimately it's just not having the fit that I want. And part of that is a me problem, part of that is a pattern problem. So I will be ripping this out, which is a shame because it is so pretty. This is I worked on this sweater before the Songbird mittens, but like you can even see, like especially here, you can probably see some puckering along the curves of the waves. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that I'm ripping it out, because my color work tension isn't very good. I am on the fence on if I'll try it again. I think that the yarn problem is easily fixable. I am unsure if the fit problem is easily fixable, and I have to think about if I want to try it again. I do have white yarn. I think that would be perfect for this, but like part of me is like, oh, this is so beautiful, like just do it, then have it. And then part of me says you shouldn't have to force a sweater pattern to fit you well, and if this one's not fitting you well, then make something else. And so as I say that, I actually have an idea of a different pattern that I think I could use. It's completely different from this, but I think it would still be really cool. So I might investigate that, but it won't be right away. Not surprisingly, it's another Rebecca Clow pattern. I have a type, what can I say? Okay, finally, and this is why I wish I'd done my socks last, finally I have my acquisitions. And again, I'm only including my acquisitions because it falls under one of the two categories, and this category is I intend to use it immediately. Oh. So this is Lichen and Lace. So the same brand as my current sock project. So this is, Lichen and Lace, hand dyed in Sackville, New Brunswick, so it's Canadian. I like supporting Canadian indie dyers when I can. There's a few that I really like, and this colorway is called Orchid. I think it's really beautiful. This is their new sock base. So it is still an 80-20 sock base. It is 80% machine washable organic merino. I believe that means that it is not superwash. Does it? Oh, I don't know. I'll have to go and look. I actually am really curious now. So yeah, 80% machine washable organic merino, 20% recycled nylon. It's the same yardage as the other one, which is 100 grams equals 365 yards. I don't know yards. Hang on, I have my laptop. 365 yards in meters. 334 meters. So a slightly heavier fingering. That's what this is. I am really excited to use it. I intend to use this one next. I think the colorway is so pretty. I love it. As soon as I'm done these socks, I'm essentially gonna cast on my next socks. It might be the same pattern. It depends on how those ones fit. After blocking, if they grow a lot, then I might cast on for the size 3 and just trust that after blocking, they will fit me appropriately and not be too thin or too narrow. My other and final acquisition is another sock yarn. It is Ravenswood Fiber Co., which is also a Canadian dyer. They are in Nova Scotia, so another one of the East Coast provinces. This is the colorway Night Storm. Hang on. Purple is my favorite color, and specifically like this shade of purple is my favorite. I'm really excited to use this. I could also see myself using this as the main, and this is like the contrast cuff, heel, and toe, which I might do. Well, actually, I better check yardage. This one's a true fingering, so this is 100 grams to 400 meters, so maybe not appropriate to mix with this one, but this is a 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon. The way they've written it on this tag is kind of funny. So yeah, those are the two acquisitions that I'm including. I have quite a large yarn stash, and so I am trying to use that wherever possible. And there is certain projects, like I just bought yarn from a Canadian indie yarn dyer for a specific summer project, and I won't get it in time to do the summer project for this summer season, but it's a base that I can't get at my local yarn store, and I want to try it, and I think it would be perfect. So I do purchase yarn for specific reasons, but like I have lots of sweater yarn. I have, yeah, I won't get into it. I'm already at almost an hour, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next time.